이번 세션의 주제는 공학교육 혁신과 산학협력 증진입니다. 잘 아시는 바와 같이 공과대학의 목적은 산업체에 대한 기술력 공급이죠. 그런데 그 산업기술이 요즘 엄청나게 빠른 속도로 변화하고 있습니다. 거기에 교육은 어떻게 대처할 것인가 하는 문제가 오늘 주제가 될 것 같습니다. 어떻게 하면 산업체에 더 도움이 되는 효과적인 공학교육을 할 수 있을 것인가 하는 문제와 더불어서 산학협력을 어떻게 할 것인가 하는 주제가 다루어집니다. 네 분의 연사를 초청했습니다. 첫 번째 분은 A.Gabriele, 미국 빌라노바 대학교 공과대학 학장이시고 NSF에서도 일하는 경험이 있으십니다. 그 다음에 두 번째는 Leifer, 미국 스탠포드 대학교의 교수로 일하고 계십니다. 그 다음에 세 번째 분이 마르티 라우노넨, 핀란드의 물류 테크노폴리스 부사장을 맡고 계십니다. 실제 산업과 대학에서 조금씩 발표를 하고 마지막으로 김용세 성균관 대학교 교수께서 마지막 발표자로 같이 발표를 해주시겠습니다. 그러면 첫 번째 A.Gabriele 빌라노바 대학 공과대학 학장님을 모시고 발표를 주도록 하겠습니다.
It's a pleasure to be here in Korea, my first time, to give you my thoughts on engineering education and to give you some insights to how the National Science Foundation in America has been supporting engineering education and where it is hoping engineering education will go in the future. This presentation is based on my last 2 years of experience at being the division director for the Division of Engineering Education and Centers at the National Science Foundation. What I'd like to do in this talk is to give you just a brief introduction for those that are not familiar with what National Science Foundation is and its mission, and then talk a little bit about the history of National Science Foundation's support for engineering education. It goes back many, many years, and then to talk about the future and where engineering education needs to head from the perspective of National Science Foundation. So quickly, the National Science Foundation was established in 1950 by the National Science Foundation Act of the U.S. Congress. It actually grew out of an organization that existed during World War II. It's the only agency within the U.S. government authorized to provide funding for research across all science and engineering disciplines. And it provides these funds based on the best proposals. In other words, proposals are judged purely on their merit through the review process. And they're judged mostly on those projects that are going to create knowledge. The mission of the National Science Foundation is to promote the progress of science, to advance the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and to secure the national defense. It does this by enabling the nation's future through discovery, learning, and innovation. It concentrates on 3 strategic goals of people, ideas, and tools, and then its own goal of organizational excellence. I think the principal thing to keep in mind about the National Science Foundation is that its goal is to constantly move the frontier of knowledge in both science and engineering. And that is its sole purpose, its sole role within the U.S. government, as well as to promote science and engineering education. And so while we do have a Department of Education within the U.S. government, the National Science Foundation really has responsibility for pushing science and engineering education. It is, the Science Foundation is broken up into these directorates that are shown here. There are directorates in biological sciences, computer information science and engineering, education, human resources. And then I showed down in the left corner there the Directorate for Engineering, of which one piece of that actually is the Small Business and Innovation Research Grants, which is an important part of all programs within the U.S. government. And I show the other directorates there. Within the Engineering Directorate, It is divided into three cross-cutting areas. An area that looks at emerging frontiers, looks at really risky, very high-risk research, and then education and centers division, which was the division that I headed, and then industrial innovation and partnerships, looks at how partnerships between industry and university can be formed. And then there are the main disciplinary areas shown on the right. So let me now talk about engineering education and NSF's support for that. This is a timeline that kind of goes back over 20 years to show how the National Science Foundation support the different programs the National Science Foundation has supported. Actually, at one time, this timeline begins in 1980 when President Reagan eliminated all educational programs at the NSF and tried to move them to the education department. But within 5 years, they were back at NSF. And so that turned out to be not as good a move because there wasn't as much, again, emphasis on science and engineering education. And it was clear to the government that needed to stay within the National Science Foundation because there is an integration between research and education that is put off there. This is a busy chart, so let me concentrate on just a few things that are on this chart. It goes right up to the bottom right-hand corner, but probably one of the most important pieces, one of the most significant things was the funding of what was called the Engineering Coalitions, which were a group of 4 coalitions of a number of schools, all focused on trying to improve engineering education. And then in recent years, at about 2000, there was a very important study funded from NSF through the National Academy of Engineering to look at the engineer of 2020. What should the engineer of 2020 be? What are the kinds of problems they're going to have to encounter and be able to solve? There's a companion report to that called the Educating the Engineer of 2020. And then another piece about the same time was the establishment of Centers for Teaching and Learning, in which the NSF established a Center for the Advancement of Engineering Education. And this is when things started to change from a focus on educational reform to a focus on research in engineering education, so that we could better understand how students learn engineering rather than just making changes to the engineering curriculum without the fundamental research underpinnings to do so. And I'll try to talk a little bit about that. That Center for Teaching and Learning, the Center for the Advancement of Engineering Education, is headquartered, if you will, at the University of Washington with partners from Stanford, Colorado School of Mines, and Howard University. And then the last piece, which has just appeared in the literature within the last 2 months, was a research agenda that NSF sponsored to define what are the principal problems that need to be solved and helping us understand better and how to educate engineers. And I would refer you to the most recent edition of the Journal of Engineering Education, which is published by the American Society of Engineering Education, for a description of that research agenda. So what was learned from these investments over the years, and particularly the coalition's investment, was a very large investment of probably over $20 million. We learned that large investments in reform, which is essentially the coalition program, did yield some improvements, but they tended to be very local changes, not the widespread systemic change that we were looking for. There were a few changes that found their way into many schools, like moving engineering courses sooner in the curriculum to help retain students in engineering, but not the widespread change that we had hoped. There was a deeper understanding of engineering education system and how to change it, because we weren't able to change it, but we did understand what we thought were the problems after that. We realized then that we did need more research on learning and teaching, and that started to build the scholarship of discovery around engineering education that didn't exist when the program started. And that research and well-constructed interventions are not sufficient. In the end, though, you still need leadership from the hierarchy of the college and the university to make these changes. So things that we did learn out of this were integrated curriculums that link engineering practice to engineering theory does enhance retention of students into engineering. We learned, and it's clear, that active learning, moving to see how your engineering can impact and better improve the lives of others. We also had to learn techniques which accelerate students' ability to identify with the profession of engineering and construct the meaning of the subject are positive. And further faculty development was needed for national dissemination of innovative curriculum. So in the end, we did have some findings, but we recognize again that it comes down to leadership and developing the faculty to do that, because these require some dramatic changes. Now as we move forward to think about how now, in the coming 21st century, globalization will impact engineering education, we have to think about some new things, and let me talk a little bit about that. Since 2000, there's been a number of reports that have appeared in the United States. Nearly all of these reports were funded by either directly by NSF or influenced by NSF funding. The first one talks about engineering research in America's future, what we really need to be doing to improve the research infrastructure. The next two were the two I mentioned earlier, the Engineer of 2020 and Educating the Engineer of 2020, two important reports that try to define the targets for where engineering education should go. And then there was the Rising Above the Gathering Storm report, which really looked at, which was probably the most influential of all these reports, and that it went directly to our Congress, and that has resulted in some initiatives by the President and Congress to improve the innovative capacity, the teaching capacity for science and engineering, and to develop more programs to attract students to engineering and science in the United States. And then the last report was put together by an industry consortium to look at what we need to do to improve the innovative culture and the innovative structures within our society, but also to build and improve on those within our educational systems. And that report actually was put together by a council of companies called the Council on Competitiveness. So what were some of the principal things, influences? Well, Engineers of 2020 said that engineers who are broadly educated see themselves as global citizens, which we thought was an important piece of this. That they can lead in business and public service, as well as in research, development, and design, are ethical and inclusive of all segments of society. These are the kinds of engineers that we want to produce. This is the target that the Engineer 2020 report was putting forward in front of us. They also need to possess strong analytical skills, creativity, ingenuity, professionalism, and leadership. Those are all things that we need to try to strive for, opportunities to put in front of the students during their curriculum. Of course, many folks are familiar with this book as well. This has had a great influence on our thinking about globalization. In The World is Flat, Thomas Friedman's book, and we know now how well companies and organizations and individuals can integrate and work in real time and across the whole world now. So this has certainly had a major influence on looking at the market that our graduates are going to go into. It's clearly now a global market. And the other report that I think is very interesting was produced by the McKinsey Group that looked at the emerging global market and how engineering is perceived in that market. And engineering occupations turn out to be some of the most amenable to remote location. Again, this means that we can take engineering activities and move them almost anywhere because primarily they do not often require direct interaction with the customer. Those kinds of occupations that do require interaction with the customer are difficult to move offshore. For example, it's still difficult to get a haircut through the internet. The offshore talent now exceeds the potential that's in high-wage countries by a factor of 2. That there is a lot of talent out there and compared to the potential to employ them. However, if you look very carefully, as this report did, and looked at through their HR directors at all the multinational companies, they find that really only about 17% of that engineering talent in those countries is suitable for work in a multinational company. And what that means is that there's a great variability in the quality of their education, where they are located, and in fact there's also domestic competition for engineers. And then they project that actually at current suitability rates and an aggressive pace of adoption, In other words, this is the conservative scenario, that they expect that the supply of engineers will be constrained in about 10 years' time. That means there will be a shortage. And we heard that actually yesterday's session in different ways as we talked about aging societies and aging workforce. So what seems clear to us is that knowledge and human capital are becoming key driving forces in the global economy, which is, again, the subject of this conference. All countries, developing and industrialized, will have a shortfall in science and engineering talent. Education has become one of the highest priorities for developing countries, and competition for this talent in the future is going to be a major global battleground. So it speaks to good things for engineering education, but for countries like us, it really means that we have to find ways to attract our best and most talented students to these areas. And once we do, what do we have to produce? We want to produce a competitive and global engineer. We heard about this book yesterday from one of our principal speakers by Daniel Pink, The Whole New Mind. And what she puts forward the idea that the era of left brain dominance, which we've been through, and most of our educational processes is focused around left brain thinking, are giving way to a new world in which right brain thinking really needs to be the value that is hard to offshore, if you will, and the kind of quality that we need to produce in all our graduates. And then there's another important paper that's appeared in a number of venues by Gary Downing from Virginia Tech that says engineering education also needs to be multidisciplinary. And the reasons for that is that we need to move engineering away from the very constrained jurisdiction, if you will, of being just limited to problem solving. That in the end, what we also have to have is engineers that can also formulate problems. They need to be able to define problems well. And we think we are doing that often in our educational processes, but I think if we look very carefully, you can see that we aren't. And in this context, what Gary is calling for is problem definition that is across disciplines, not just within engineering, but being able to integrate within your engineering problem the perspectives of people from outside engineering, and being able to talk across your disciplines to people who are non-technical, and being able to understand the kinds of qualities that they bring to the problem and the kinds of definitions that they bring to problem definition. So what do we think are the issues to work on? Well, if we talk about the very constrained type of engineering, the engineering where problems are well-defined and easy to export, we would call that commodity engineering. And that will increasingly be done wherever there will be low-cost providers. So right now it may be China, in years to come it may be someplace in Africa, but wherever there are low-cost providers, that's where that work will be able to go, again, as a consequence of being able to move work around the world easily. So we need to, I think, as engineering educators, to be careful about what kinds of engineers we produce, and we need to understand the advantage that our engineers will bring to the global market. The other issue we need to work on is that engineering curriculums, I think, while they have done a pretty good job, and always have done a good job of trying to bring new technologies as they emerge into the curriculum, we have not kept up with all the other changes that have occurred in engineering practice, such as being able to lead teams, being able to understand a multidisciplinary problem, being able to work in a global perspective. Those are the things now that are starting to define engineering practice that we haven't kept up on as quickly. We haven't been as quick to bring those to the curriculum, and I think that's what we have to do, is how do we transform our engineering curriculums so that our graduates will continue to be competitive as the environment around them changes, not only the technology, but the environment. So a few thoughts. We need to sharpen, as I said, the analytical left brain activities on the most important concepts. We need to understand what those concepts are, and there's some talk, and certainly in the research agenda I mentioned earlier, that we need to understand understand what are the basic concepts that all engineers need to understand. I'm not sure that there's good agreement on that. But those are the things that need to be in hand to do for the left brain analytical work that needs to be done. But we need to also make sure that we have taken into account the right brain activities that have to be accounted for and make for a high-value individual. And so we need to strive for more whole-brained education by increasing the creative opportunities within our curriculum. We need to increase the opportunities for problem exploration and problem definition. Too often our engineering curriculum is broken down to where the problems are well-defined for the students to solve, and then we make sure that they get the right answer. But we know that real engineering practice isn't like that. We need to make sure that the students have an opportunity to explore the parameters of a problem and to also, as equally, be able to develop their own problem definitions and work on how to formulate the problem. Being able to ask the questions of is this the right problem to be solved, or is it another problem? And again, we need to do this within diverse settings. And what I mean here is not just within engineering. Engineers talking to other engineers is what goes on most often we expect in companies, but there is also a lot of discussion between engineers and non-engineers. And particularly if we're going to solve society's problems, this is where engineers have to be able to move. They have to be able to deal in those regimes and be able to address those disciplines. So we need to make sure that we are creating engineers who are not only adept at solving industry problems, but they're adept at helping solve society's problems, particularly when we look at issues around the environment, healthcare, and energy. Many of those problems will require engineers. And then I think, and this isn't always the case, but I think we need to remind ourselves of who are our true customers in engineering education. I often hear that the customer is industry. Those are the people that we are training engineers for. But we need to think that our customers, in my opinion, are our students. Those are the people that we are training. Those are the people that are coming to us for help. And that needs to be the paradigm that we think about. How do we best prepare them for a lifetime career? There are also issues around graduate study that NSF has looked at. And if we look at graduate plans of studies, they are often focused on greater technical depth. For some reason, there doesn't seem to be much opportunity for graduate students to look outside their areas, and particularly in non-science, technology, engineering, and math courses. That opportunity is often is virtually non-existent in most graduate programs. But on the other hand, there are opportunities to increase your creative capacities when you do start looking outside your discipline. And we need to allow for that in graduate education. There's certainly mentoring issues. We've always had mentoring issues, particularly for women and minorities, and I think those need to be solved. Most graduate students are ill-prepared for what they're going to be asked to do when they graduate, which is to plan research programs, to write proposals, to teach, to mentor, and to enter a general academic life. If they're kept in the lab working on their research, they never have an opportunity to experience these things. They won't be well prepared to do that when they move to the professorate or to research labs. And again, more opportunity for right brain thinking and addressing open-ended problems. So at NSF, in the Engineering and Education Division, there are two strategies that are that have been developed. As I mentioned earlier, we're now focusing on research of how students learn engineering, and we're looking at both the undergrad and the graduate level. So no longer are we focused on just what is the latest interesting idea about how to change the curriculum. We're more interested in ideas that will tell us how the students learn from the curriculum. We're trying to get away from what we've had for many years was characterized as a methodology of guesses. So we guess we're going to try this, we try it, we check the faculty, they seem to like it, we check the students, they seem to like it, but we never know why it works. So we need to really do the fundamental work in order to get fundamental change in the curriculum. We also need to look at how we can change the curriculum United States. We have very talented students that are going to other disciplines. And I think as we move forward, we're going to need that talent in some of these very difficult problems we have to solve in the future. So this is a final thought that comes from the second of the Engineering 2020 reports that came from Charles Vest, the former president of MIT. He said, as we think about the many challenges ahead, it is important to remember that students are driven by passion, by curiosity, engagement, and dreams. And in the long run, making universities and engineering schools exciting, creative, adventurous, rigorous, demanding, and empowering milieus is more important than worrying about the specific curricular details. And I think too often we've over-engineered our curriculum without thinking about what the opportunities are for just making it an interesting place to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the organizers inviting me to a presentation here in South Korea. Last time I visited 3 years ago, I was promoting the cooperation between Finnish companies and Korean companies. And as you maybe know, Finland is very well known on the mobile business, so that of course the focus was between those companies. And still I can't use my phone here, so that I hope that in the future it's possible to use it in South Korea also. But the platform nowadays is quite same in Korea and in European countries, so I'm very hopeful for that in the future. And in my presentation, I give overview what we have done in Finland, especially in a small city, Oulu, which is located 1 hour flight from our capital city, Helsinki. And we have only 200,000 people living in that city. When I was born in that city, we didn't have any university in that city. But nowadays, we have university in that city, we have technical research center, and we have technology park, and over 300 different companies which are in mobile business nowadays. And I had luck because I have both studies, made my both studies in this university. I have engineering degree from that university and PhD from economics and global industrial management. So that it was really important for, in my case, so that we had that kind of university in Oulu. And I try to tell what is the basis for the successful cooperation between companies, universities, and when you start from nothing. We had only pulp and paper companies in our city and nothing else. And first, my background. I come from the Technopolis group. It was founded in Oulu 25 years ago, and our business is technology park business. So that we are promoting the cooperation between companies and universities and doing business at the same time. When we started, the government of Finland and the city of Oulu put half of the money and the companies put half of the money. So that the role of government and the city of Oulu was really important in the beginning. But nowadays we are a private company, so that we are listed in Helsinki Stock Exchange. We have over 3,000 different shareholders. For example, if I remember right, Washington University is one of those shareholders nowadays. And at the moment we have 8 different technology parks in Finland. We are helping to Russia build their own technology park network at the moment, so that 1 month ago we bought a land plot in St. Petersburg, and we are starting businesses also in Russia nowadays. And 1 month ago we merged the Tampere technology park also to Technopolis group, so that nowadays we are the leading technology park actor in Finland. Okay, other shareholders. Nowadays, city of Oulu is still very important shareholder, but not anymore so important as in the beginning. And as I told, we have over 3,000 different shareholders nowadays, and foreign owners nearly 50% nowadays. And business has been put so that our share has been better than normal share price in Helsinki Stock Exchange. So that the red one is the average Finnish company stock exchange progress, and of course Nokia is really important in that red line, but the Technopolis has been in the blue line. And our vision still is aggressive growth in Finland, but also in Russia and Baltic countries, and we would like to be the number one in Europe on the network meeting in the future. And the Technopolis concept, we are offering premises for the houses, for the companies, and this is the main business, so that 80% of the turnover is coming, or revenue is coming from the premises, renting the premises. And then we have business services for the companies, telecommunication businesses. We have over 100 different items for the companies. If you are building premises, you need only construction companies, and the next stage is the business services, and then you are in business, which are business parks. But if you are talking about the technology parks, from our point of view, it means that there are also development programs, and these development programs are based on the public-private partnership, so that we are doing this with governments and local cities. But at the same time, we have supporting program for companies, so that they are able to go to the foreign markets. Finland is very small country. We have only 5 million people living in our country, so that it means that Finland is only testing markets for those companies, and after that they have to go to the foreign markets immediately. And the Technopolis idea is to offer the excellent environment for the companies, universities and research centers, so that our main task is to promote that kind of cooperation together with those key players. Okay, this is city where I come from. It's old. As I told, nearly 50 years ago, when I was born, at the same time the University of Oulu was founded, and it has now nearly 50 years experience to tackle university things. In the beginning, when Technopolis started, we were university-related technology park, so because we didn't have any companies in the beginning. We had only good research and some good technical applications to make as a business in the future, but nothing else. But nowadays, we are company-related technology park, so that we are talking with these companies all the time. We are running forums with these companies and looking for what is best for the companies in the future, and the university programs are based on that discussion. So that, for example, in the mobile business, it means that university research is focusing from 5 years to 20 or forever. And we have technical research center in this city, which is focusing from 2 to 5 years, and the companies are tackling in business in 1 or 2 years, so that it's whole package together with the universities and companies and research centers. And in Finland nowadays we have very good funding system for the funding for the technology, so that Finnish government has put a lot of money for that kind of progress in Finland. And this cooperation between these key players is the most important. In Oulu we have actually at the moment already 5 different technology parks. And every park has a little bit different focus. For example, this Linnanmaa area where we started, it is focusing on ICT businesses, and mainly for mobile business. We have also started one technology park which is focusing on water purification and water treatment. It is The anchor company in that case is Kemira company, which is one of the leading companies in Finland. In Linnanmaa area, the Nokia was the first anchor company, and it is really important so that at the same time in that business area we have good anchor companies who are willing to put money and resources for the cooperation between these key players. And funding is based mainly on the governmental funding and the company funding all the time. We have also Multidisciplinary concept which is looking for healthcare businesses. There in the same place we have university, we have companies, we have university hospital and different other key players. It's really important that all the key players are in the same place. That's the most important when you are building up these kind of programs. And at the same time, it's really important so that the university research, university education is supporting that kind of progress at the same time. Okay, here is the idea how to run these ideas so that companies and universities and in Finland the public sector has been really important. As I told, it's the first market in Finland. We have only 500 people, so that this cooperation, also so-called public-private partnership, in our case has been really important, so that the role of government and role of cities has really been important in Finnish case. And here are some ideas which we have to always check and develop all the time, looking for what are the key issues for the future. Okay, here is the working, how we work. We have these forums which are based on the industry and looking for the businesses, global businesses. In these forums we are all the time speaking about what is happening in technology in the future, what is happening in the business, so that even small and medium-sized companies understand all the time how the world is changing, what is happening worldwide, and what is the next businesses which they can be involved in the future. But we are focusing with companies, so that it's quite normal, so that there are 20 to 30 different companies participating in this work, and it's important to show that there are anchor companies which are already global companies. They put the effort for that. And this working method has been in all cases really good, and we are taking this in every our technology park nowadays. For example, in Otaniemi, which is near the Helsinki University of Technology, we are using the same kind of working methods nowadays. Okay, this is a practical idea. 5 years ago, together with Nokia, we had long discussion what we have to do next, and we made this kind of test bed for the mobile application. This is some kind of open source test bed for every company. Our company can participate this test bed, so that they don't have to invest to that kind of test bed. They can use this test bed for their R&D and making new products. And also university students and polytechnic students from polytechnics can use this in education, so that this is the real practical education and training environment for students and company workers at the same time. And this is open nowadays. In the beginning it was closed, but nowadays every foreign company can also participate in this open platform to develop new mobile applications on the basis of Nokia platform. It's open for everyone. Okay, here is the business. That was the technology which we have developed for the companies, but this is the business, so that together with companies we have analyzed what is happening in the future in this business, so that every company knows what is happening. it's really important because we have anchor companies and subcontractors, so that they are doing this together, and subcontractors see what are the possibilities in the future for their businesses, so that they can choose the right one, and it's easy to come to the whole business model. Okay, here are some which we have developed in Oulu, so that actually the first mobile generation, this NMT standard, was developed between Sweden and Finland already 81, so that it was the first stage for the mobile phone generations, and we have been involved from the beginning for that. And 81 was the second when we had luck to be participating in the second generation CSM standard generation. And nowadays we are trying to follow what is happening worldwide, because now more companies are interested to be in this business, so that we had very silent times 10 years, but during last 10 years every big companies are interested to be in this business nowadays. So that we have to be very careful when we are looking what is good and what is best for us, because I think so that we can't be anymore in the future the leader, but if we are part of the growing businesses from the Oulu and Technopolis point of view, and we are not looking at the leading economics, we are looking for the growing economics, so that it's really important to be in the future part of the growing economics for our companies. Nokia is of course another story, but when we are talking about Finnish small and medium-sized companies which are growing at the moment. Okay, here are some applications which we have promoted in Oulu in healthcare businesses, and in biotechnology we have combined these two ideas, so that we have had biosensors, but we have also this wireless communication. We have two top research centers in university. The other one is a biocenter, but the old one, which was focusing on wireless communication, is a center for wireless communication. Nowadays in that center there are a lot of researchers from everywhere, so that we have professors and students from United States, we have nowadays from Japan, we have from China, and also from, for example, from Korea, who are helping us to promote these businesses, also nowadays, but also in the future. Okay, this is Innovating. I take this because in our case, as I told, we have limited resources. In all, we have only 200,000 people, so that it means that we have limited resources, and we are looking for the resources for our purposes. So that near the Helsinki University of Technology there is Innopolis, which was merged to Technopolis 3 years ago. And this is tackling the development of companies. We are helping the companies to grow, and we are helping in startup and spin-off cases, so that it's really important to us. And in Finland, this Otanium is the best place for the startups and spin-offs nowadays, because it's more bigger than Oulu area. But we are using these same concepts as we have developed in Oulu and Helsinki in every our technology park, so that we are taking care of these activities which we have developed in these two places everywhere. And that's the situation where we are now. And of course we have also challenges in the future. We have made also the strategy for the future, but I'm not able to tell that now. But maybe after 3 years I can tell what has happened, but sorry about that. because it is our strategical future. Okay, thank you.
Adventure with broken technology, and I hope we can tell the story nevertheless. In part, I'd like to be building on comments by Gary about major trends especially in the U.S. and looking at changes in engineering education. One particular piece of the work that I do in one of the centers that NSF supports is we ask, what are the new fundamentals? One of the new fundamentals is in the world of creativity, innovation, design, new product development. I'd like to share with you today some personal experiences from one community, a little biased towards Stanford, but I hope it's entertaining. My own personal memory. Another technology. Okay. Bachelor's degree, and a master's degree, and a PhD, and I thought that was a pretty good deal. And I was a full person. I did research, I surfed, I flew airplanes, it was great. Then I got an assistant professor, an associate professor, a full professor. Life's not so good. Now, that's my biography. But the point is that my students look like this fellow on the right. They are coming to my university in this position. They are engaging the world through fingertips and little screens. I have some angst about that. I think it's not the best possible world. So we have a challenge. Three microphones. Thanks for getting really bad. Let's see if we can take the room. This is an image we can do without. It's actually a fun image of a robot car produced by the Audi Corporation for the movie I, Robot. That's the future. I want to say a few things to contextualize my thinking, and then I'll walk you through the future, the present, and the past. This is a diagram that's used in one of my favorite design consultancies to talk with clients about what their innovation needs might be. When you're on the right side of the diagram, we have the space where Gary referred to left and right brain working together in a holistic way to discover new human needs and new solutions for those needs. On the far left, we have the left brain world of product optimization. There's a lot of profit there, but it's past profit. Whereas on the right, we foresee future profit. But there are actually more than two sides to the brain in this case. There's an upper side brain, which is how to be entrepreneurial, how to work in communities of people to achieve social objectives. In the lower part of this brain, there is the opportunity to take highly proficient environments like Technopolis, take that environment and put it to work to create the product and enterprise of your choice. So the space for innovation is actually quite broad and diversified. Of a successful innovation. An innovation that produces surprise and delight. We didn't see it coming, and it's better than we imagined. Please enjoy the video clip. sound effects, a creaky lamp, a bouncing ball. We elected not to challenge the audio technology right now. Enjoy the people on the street. Been there yourself. I particularly like this story because it uses very high technology at the time to represent human emotion, human relationships in the context of a simple lamp. I think it's powerfully expressive, surprisingly close to what life is like as an instructor in the university. We have a major undertaking on our campus to re-examine how the practice of design engineering education could take place. The focus is on innovation. It is admittedly the peculiar point of view of our community. The key words in our strategic plan include these. Interestingly, many of them were in various slide representation. More experience, more integrated, more discovery, but more than anything, perhaps, empathy, understanding human need, understanding that other people approach the need and the solution differently. We don't need to love them, but we need to have empathy with them. It's about a new institute. This is the classroom. This is a class in progress. It includes students from the arts, professors for computer science, students from mechanical, electrical engineering, entrepreneurship. You see cultural diversity, you see gender diversity. We're trying to maximize the diversity everywhere we can. This is our strategic plan. We used it all of last year. We now have a new map, and we'll have a new plan for this year. One of the key opportunities in our community, as quoting here from Professor John Hennessy, the president of the university, is that multidisciplinary is our option, is our opportunity. Those who learn to do it best and quickest will be amongst the leaders, the next generation. This is the breakthrough. It's worth a little story. That Business Week ran this story about the company IDEO. IDEO is a product development company. Those of us who are old-time faculty see them as a spin-off from our design program. Mr. Hasso Plattner, I don't know if any of you know who he is, he just happened to have been the founder of SAP Enterprise Software. He saw this magazine. Looked at the story, he went to the next board meeting, he waved this magazine around, and he said, we're going to buy that. Well, in fact, he didn't buy it, he donated it. He put in a major gift. It allows our community to take design thinking stress on thinking out into the university as a whole, rather than leaving it bound inside of engineering, let alone mechanical. So I think it's a huge opportunity to take a way of thinking that is holistic, left and right, top and bottom brain. Let's use it all, and let's use it across the disciplines. So every class is an experience in design thinking. It's not a lecture in design thinking, it's doing it. It's doing it in small groups. It's doing it collaboratively, intense collaboration. I think you can see in this picture that it may not be a happy moment, but it's an intense moment. People sharing their views, sharing their opinions, sharing their knowledge, sharing their ignorance. Project-based, product-based, learning through design versus learning in order to design. The activity of design thinking and learning produces learned outcomes, and I believe we can measure them. It's a culture of prototyping. If this was a science lecture, it would be about doing experiments. Lots of experiments. Experiments to learn, not to build, not to prove your craftsmanship, but to learn. And if you learn successfully, no experiment is a failure. We like to invert the equation between teaching and learning. It's learning in order to teach. Our students do the exploration. They bring knowledge back to the classroom. They share it with each other and the faculty, and we all go away enriched, knowing more than when we came in. And I'm speaking for the faculty. We're driven by a sense of passion. David Kelly, who is the founder of IDEO, has decided to get passionate about K-12 education. He's going to redesign it. Might want to take him seriously. David Beach, who is the head of our manufacturing program, he's passionate that manufacturing should get green. Jim Patel from the business school is passionate about bringing business design to the developing world. He gives courses on the subject of extreme affordability. If it costs $50 in Korea, it will cost $5 in the next environment. Stay close to the phone. The lower right corner is for myself. I have the passion to do design for well-being. Our students, of course, are our primary product. These are students, each of whom comes to us as a different entity and who should leave us as a different entity. They're not being trained to a common framework, or a common way of being creative and innovative. Each is there to learn the way of doing it best for themselves. We think of this as creating tea people. From across the disciplines, we get students with a lot of experience with their analytic skills. We like to look for a student who has little branches on the side of that vertical trunk. And if there's a little branch, then we nurture it and we feed it and we try to get it to grow out until they have a full breadth of perception and awareness, and they link that to their analytic capability. Different way of expressing holistic. We ourselves came primarily out of the engineering community and the art community, and now we try to take these ways of thinking to other disciplines. And all courses are taught by faculty from more than one discipline, and students are recruited from more than one discipline. We try to achieve the synthesis of technical feasibility, products and services that work, that address human values and human needs, and that yield businesses that are sustainable as well. The union is the goal. Somehow this T got in here twice, I don't know. If we are successful, our people will be able to stand upright all the time. I'm looking forward to that. Here we go again. A little bit of something from the present. What do we know from working with industry to achieve precision innovation? Nice picture. One of the things we're doing now is delivering our courses, and one in particular, the one I teach globally. We have partners in each of these universities, sometimes multiple teams. You'll see that there's a missing entity in Korea. I hope we can solve that before the day's over. The arrangement is that we have a course, a very mature curriculum, almost 30 years old, that has always brought corporate projects onto the campus to engage our students in solving real-world problems. That's the inner circle of sponsors in this diagram. As of this year, all of the projects have global partners as well. And this begins to address, as both a teaching and learning situation and as a research situation, how global collaboration can really take place every day, maybe all night. I'll let you glance through this list simply to see the companies that are involved, the diversity of those companies, a sense of what the project is about, and who the global partner is. As you read, I'll stress that we don't ask for the project specifically. The company tells us what's important to them. They bring projects where they want innovation. Almost all of these titles address human need and the need for interaction between people and their technology. We no longer get plain vanilla, build a better machine problems. It has to be a machine that serves people. I want to give you a little feeling for the complexity of the experience that a student has. An individual student, teams of 3 to 4, are in the red circles. Each team gets a coach, usually a professional from the surrounding community. They have a command and control organization structure moving to the faculty on the left, and a separate line of responsibility moving outside to the corporation on the right. It's just a diagram to give you a feeling for how complex life is for this student. They don't just sit and listen to a lecture. They're working with all these people. When we're done, at the end of a year, this is a 9-month curriculum, we produce people who are very effective at working in teams. They often leave to form companies such as those identified in the icons. The product is a team. The unit of education is a team. Let me share a couple of examples with you. In this case, industry brings the problem to the university, and we work with them to achieve a solution. The VW company wanted to know if they could use gesture, the moving of my hands, to control the car while we drive. The team put together a machine vision system to track where the hand is, as well as what the configuration of the hand is. We have a lost video, and I think we'll pass on this one here. It shows a live video clip of the hand very well. It's installed in the car. Patent applications have been made. It may or may not end up in your car. Let me share another example coming from Audi Corporation. Like we did a study of the engineer of 2020, they asked us what would the autopilot of the car look like in 2020. This was a global team, 4 students at Stanford, 4 students at the Technical University of Munich. The sponsor in the middle is a robot car. The challenge: how does the operator of the car operate all of these functions while driving 80 miles an hour on the streets of your city safely? Information overload in the cockpit is really dangerous. It's probably more deadly than running into physical obstacles, because that's what you do next. So the team discovered through field studies that to keep driving the primary task, all other tasks would have to be made secondary and even not available to you if you were under difficult driving circumstances. Their solution was to build an AI system interface to the cockpit that would allow the flow of information to go through an intelligent filter, delivering to you the blue nugget of information you want when and only when you want that information. There's a lot of technology in there. I won't labor its delivery to you. All of it got installed in a car. The car was driven. The user interface was tested. The client was happy. And it looks like a scalable solution. It worked in 2005, and it can scale to work out there to 2020. One last example to share with you is from the past. That is, it's from our research program. So while these students are working on corporate projects, we have other students, typically doctoral students, studying what they do, how they do it, and how it could be made better. Our preferred experimental method is video interaction analysis. It's a technique borrowed from social anthropology. We use it as engineers to come up with the next new thing. What's different about this product development world is that we not only have product requirements and we have technical teams produce technical outcomes that loop with product instrumentation on it, but we instrument the work activity of the design team as well. We instrument it, and through this instrumentation we expect to be able to do better, do faster, and do more precise innovation. The really key summary position that I'll take with you today on what design thinking is, you should be asking that question. And that's exactly the point, you should be asking questions. So, design thinking begins with asking these divergent questions about what could be, how could it be made, how could it be shaped, what's really needed, why would we need it that way, why? And then you turn around and you start to make a decision, and you converge from all the possibilities down to a choice. Makes sense. It's a cycle of activity, create possibilities, make decisions. How often do you think you should do that to be really effective? This data suggests on the vertical axis the performance of the team, And on the horizontal axis, how many questions they ask per hour. You see that in roughly a question a minute. And half of those questions were divergent, and the other half were convergent. And if you iterate that quickly, you get outstanding performance. If you only ask divergent questions, that's what we commonly call brainstorming. You don't get a product. If you only make decisions, you only get naive products that didn't get explored. So this notion of very rapid iteration in your mind and with your team partners, this is one of the most driving, measurable, trainable features of design thinking. Time out. Don't see it. Do we have time for one more example? Thank you. I tried to share with you an example where it wasn't that industry came to the university, it's that the university went to industry. In this example, we went to Electronic Arts. Electronic Arts is a very successful video game company. I let you read some of the facts about what a product development cycle looks like. Lots of people, very diverse group of people, not just programmers. Our researcher had access to all of the data in their product model and development cycle. He had extreme access, very unusual. From that, he was able to ask what features of the work cycle affect performance. He took all of the interaction, the collaboration between team members, he charts it by day, and he counts the number of interactions that take place, the vertical axis. I don't go into this one in much detail because I want you to feel pain. Pain happens when you take that data and you model it as a social, professional network of people paid to interact, paid to create a product. The software that will now run, and I'll ask Gary's help again, will represent for you how people were working together. Need an next one. This would be the Kreiner. If you recall, that product cycle was going to be about 7 to 8 months. We're watching a day go by per tick, per second. You're seeing the same thing that I am seeing. Nothing. If you're a product manager, you're beginning to feel pain. All of your people are working alone. There's no evidence that they're talking. And there's absolutely no evidence that they're working on the project together. Everyone has taken their own separate piece of paper, if you will, and they're spending days and weeks and even months in isolation from each other. The 5 red dots are the people who will emerge over time to be the collaboration and coordination key players. Keep a little extra eye on them. Notice that some of these players are artists. Understand that in the gaming world, the artist is the boss. What they dictate is what the programmers create. And the artists are very isolated. We're already going through the second milestone. And the interaction is modest. This particular kind of visualization has promise as a tool for project management to both track and quantify progress in the work of a group, independently of what the technical device progress would be. So in the feedback diagram I showed earlier, there's technical data about the product making progress, but this is social data about the team and how they're working on it, or not working on it together. That was about 7th month ago. There's a month left. I think I'm going to be quiet now because it's getting really dramatic. For those of you who have been in product development, or maybe those of you who teach courses that are project-based, you will recognize the end development cycle, thresh, the madness that goes on, people working 30-hour days, day after day. We're not sure we're getting good code, we're just getting code. It's over, and so is the team. They have to take a 3-month vacation. This is not maybe the best possible development cycle. Let's see, can I get back to the other scene that easily?
Good afternoon, I'm Yong and I think we have a lot of exciting discussions here. So I think we may go a little bit over time compared to the original schedule. Well, I'm going to talk about the Design at SKKU program at Sungkyunkwan University. And these days, we need new kinds of innovators for values. The way that the world that we are living is complicated enough, so we need a lot of new efforts to create values. Okay. So that requires we need new kinds of designers, new kinds of engineers who will be leading value innovation. A lot of the things that I'll talk is very, very in the same line what Gary talked about, and then Larry just to show the marvelous the ongoing effort at Stanford. Well, we share a lot of these ideas, and I actually learned a lot from Larry, and then learned a lot from Stanford Design Division activities. And we need the designers who can actually design a lot of activities, not just the products. Okay? We have to develop into a system, even including the architectural system where the products are used. And also we need to entertain, individualize the user's experience. Okay? So we need some kind of the qualities for our engineering design students. And we want them to understand the users, cultures, and society. And we also want them to be interdisciplinary collaborators so that they can collaborate with experts in a lot of different fields that they are working on. And then we also want they will be very adaptive so that the technology is changing rapidly. So we want them to be adaptive enough, and also we want them to be having some kind of a mindset which will respect for diversity and then which will work in a global environment. So at Sungkyunkwan University, we try to develop that kind of educational program, and so we try to develop the program. And especially in Sungkyunkwan University, we have some kind of a challenge, an interesting challenge, because the social science programs, social and humanity programs of Sungkyunkwan University is located in the north part of the river of Seoul. On the other hand, the science and engineering is on the Suwon city. Okay? So, in order to bring these two different kinds of education to our engineering students, we must do a lot of extra effort. Perhaps we can use a lot of electronic communication effort, but actually what is needed is our intention to make the effort is needed more. And as a way to do that, we have started several years ago, designed an SKKU program. And for that, two organizations are playing critical role. One is Creative Design Institute. We started this 2 years ago. And then in the Creative Design Institute, we have three teams. One is a Design Foundation team. The other is a Design Social Sciences team. And the third one is a Design Informatics team. In Design Foundation, we have the faculty members in design area in general, architectural design, mechanical engineering design. On Design Social Sciences, we have faculty members in consumer science, and the experts in creativity research, both from the child education side and the social psychology side. And in the informatics area, we have the faculty members in CAD/CAM area and ergonomics area, human engineering side, as well as artificial intelligence. And the other parts which support the Design at SKKU program is the Creative Design and Intelligent Tutoring Systems Research Center. And this center was established about 2.5 years ago with the support of Korean Ministry of Science and Technology under their Creative Research Initiative program. And then we have three teams of researchers who worry about creativity and design research. And then another one tries to develop the algorithmic solutions out of our fundamental research. And then the third one is to build intelligent tutoring systems, which is the software environment which will support education. So with that kind of effort, we have done a number of earlier the trials. We developed a course called the Creative Engineering Design 5 years ago. And then this course is now required for all freshman engineering students at Sungkyunkwan University. It is required for them to get the accreditation. Okay? I think this is the only university in Korea which require first freshman level design course as a required course. And then we are further developing a course which will emphasize more on social aspect, cultural aspect, and living aspects. And we have done senior capstone design, which is now very, very popular in Korea these days. But we try to develop a little bit more of an interdisciplinary aspect. So I'm going to share with you with our two pilot efforts. With that one is the interdisciplinary design effort, with a little bit of emphasis on social cultural issues from the standpoint of a Korean capstone design standpoint. Maybe it may not match the standpoint the situation. And another one is the East Asian Collaborative Design Project. And I'm going to briefly talk about these two, but before going there, I would like to identify some of the similar programs worldwide. Larry did an excellent job in talking about
excellent program of a D school. And also there is another interesting program at Northwestern University called the Institute of Design Engineering and Application. And in fact, Creative Design Institute are collaborating with IDEA for our design education research. And another program which needs some kind of recognition is Delft University of Technology. They are faculty of industrial design engineering, and we have among our discussant the professor from that faculty. And University of Michigan started the PhD level design science program. And I'm going to briefly run over the interdisciplinary project. And for this pilot project that happened about 2 years ago, we had 6 students, and then some mechanical engineering students, some visual communication design students, consumer sciences students worked together. And then we tried to balance them, the students, based on their personal creativity mode. And this was the second team. And the first team, the way that we assigned our project was, we didn't assign any project. We just asked them, go out there, find your design problem, which may require a lot different social, cultural aspect. And in Korea, a couple of years ago, the bus station island was created for the first time. And this island, it is an island, it's in the middle of the lane, okay, 2 lanes. And the people have to wait for the buses there, day and night, no matter what the weather is. And then they cannot even go to some kind of the shopping booths. So they have to wait right beside the fast-moving buses. So that could cause, well, the students found out, that could cause a lot of trouble for the passengers. So they tried to find a solution for that situation. That was the one thing one of the team found out as a solution. And the other team addressed the elevator. I mean, in Korea, there are a lot of high-rise apartment condominiums, and then many households share elevators, and it could be the only chance that those the neighbors could bump into each other. But that social activity inside the elevator is not really comfortable. So our students try to provide a solution to those kind of problems. And for the bus island problem, they try to find it combined with the exercise need and then some kind of a game needs. So they identified some kind of a scenario, and then they developed some kind of a idea for this. The sound works. So they tried to build some kind of an exercise problem, exercise machine, simple one, just a stepper. Okay? So that while they're waiting and sitting, they can do some exercise. But in order to provide some kind of interaction among those completely the people who do not know each other, but they can just go like an elderly person and even young child can compete each other, playing this the exercise chairs, and then what they are doing is going to be displayed on the bus station, so that the others who do not actually play can watch and then have some kind of something to watch while they are waiting for the bus. So that was what this student team did. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about another pilot project that we have been doing for 2 years. And the Sungkyunkwan University has some special program under the Ministry of Education for East Asian Studies. And then for the engineering part, we developed the East Asian Collaborative Design Project. And particularly, 3 countries in East Asia, namely Korea, China, and Japan. There are a lot of things that we can share. We all use chopsticks, okay? And even the flags has a lot of common things, a lot of reddish things, but slightly different. Even the chopsticks, Korean chopsticks, Japanese chopsticks are slightly different. So we would like to have our students to understand the common aspects of those East Asian countries, as well as understanding subtle differences for those countries. So one of the test project that our students did was a lot of people are using computers, and then sometimes it could provide some kind of a pain in your neck. Okay, so our students try to provide some kind of a solution for that, and then they are looking at what is the common, especially in the Asian community, was a kind of a special massage. And they identify the specific location on your neck is very related to your eye operation, and then they want to provide a massage on that. But the solution they found out is not a touching device, but using air jet they want to provide a massage. And then these students in 3 countries collaborated using e-design facilities, and then they have gone through some of those the quick prototype development. Okay, so that was what was passed, and then what we are trying to do is in Sungkyunkwan University, because of those e-dynasty tradition, we have a Sungkyunkwan, which is in order to graduate from undergraduate, all students at Sungkyunkwan University must satisfy 3 qualities, which are the global quality, which are your actual personality quality, and the other is the information quality. It is required for all our graduates of Sungkyunkwan University. But we try to develop interdisciplinary design additional 3 qualities, which will allow our students to have a lot of understanding on cognitive and emotional aspect of human, and then living and economic aspect of human, as well as the physical environment aspect of it. So that's the effort that we are going. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, but before concluding my presentation, I have 2 special plans. One is to announce International Design Research Symposium, which is going to be held tomorrow and the day after tomorrow at Intercontinental Hotel. And the other thing that I actually would like to do is, if the Professor Doh-Yeon Kim allows, I'm going to invite some of my friends who actually came to Korea to participate in this International Design Research Symposium, but they are the experts in engineering education innovation. So I asked them to share their experience briefly. So can I invite them to? Sure. So why don't I invite first Jim Bokput-Panel. Dr. Bokput-Panel is the Assistant Director of University of Washington's Center for Learning and Technology, and also he's involved in the Center for Advancement of Engineering Education, what Gary mentioned earlier.
I was hoping I'd be last. Very briefly, I'm Assistant Director of the Center for Engineering, Learning, and Teaching, as you can see on the screen there. I don't know that I'll show the rest of the slides, actually, because I think it would end up taking more time than really is I have here. What I'd like to briefly introduce you to is what we do at the center. As you can see from the diagram on the screen, we have 2 functions at the center, 2 missions. One of them is to work with the faculty in the College of Engineering at the University of Washington to improve learning and teaching. The other mission is to do research in engineering education. When our center started in 1998, it was fairly innovative. In fact, we were the first center in the nation, in the United States, to combine those 2 missions. There were centers that did faculty development. There were centers that did engineering education research. There wasn't one that combined the 2. Now, I came on the scene 2 years ago at the center. And with my function being primarily the faculty development aspect, promoting that faculty development mission of CELT, we call it, CELT. And what I discovered was how fortuitous it was that CELT combined those two missions. It provided an opportunity, and I think this was extremely innovative, to sort of follow the theme here. It provided an opportunity for me and my center to get in the door to talk with engineering faculty. Now, I don't know about faculty in Korea or in other countries in terms of your understanding of pedagogy, learning theory, student development theory, curriculum theory, whatever it may be, pedagogical models, whether you are trained in those ways, whether or not you have education in those ways, prior to actually having to apply some of that stuff. Most faculty in the United States do not have any background in those areas, yet they are expected to apply them without that basic understanding on a daily basis. And because they're able to do that, because they're able to do what traditionally has been done in higher education, following the standard kinds of pedagogies, they think that they're doing a pretty successful job. Well, I think we all know from the pressure, if you will, from in the United States, NSF, our accreditation association, from industry, very much so, we aren't really doing that good a job in producing the kind of rich learning that these folks have been talking about. And one way that we need to be able to address that is to actually have conversations with faculty and help faculty to improve their teaching and improve their students' learning. And in order to have those kinds of conversations with very busy academics, you have to walk in there with data. You have to approach them with research-based understandings. And luckily, I guess not luckily, fortuitously, CELT has developed a reputation both nationally, internationally, and certainly on our campus for basing what we do on good, sound, cognitive research, engineering education research, and applying that to our work with faculty. So when I walk in or an instructor walks into my office, or I walk into their classroom to do an observation or work with them on some particular learning activity, they already know that I'm coming from a background and from a basis of research that allows them to relax and say, okay, just help me out. Drop the barriers that are naturally there and the resistances that are naturally there for them to be able to be a part of this kind of innovation that we're talking about here. Unless we get the faculty involved, and unless the faculty understands innovation to be more than product innovation, process innovation, they see it also as innovating the way we think about learning and the way we do teaching. I think we're not going to achieve the kinds of innovative programs. We're not going to have the innovative outcomes that certainly we are promoting here today. And that's essentially